I just wanted a weekend under the stars, not a police spotlight in my face. After months of corporate burnout, I finally drove out to my family's old ranch, 300 acres of untouched land, wild grass and the lake my grandfather dug by hand. I set up a modest campsite on the lake's edge, lit a small fire, and let the silence calm my nerves. But at 11 p.m., flashing lights appeared. "This is private property," the officer barked. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. The HOA had called the cops. "Ma'am, this is a gated community. We can't allow squatters." The cop wasn't alone. Behind him stood the HOA president, arms folded, lips curled. "We don't allow camping in this neighborhood," she snapped. I told them this lake was on my deed, had been in my family for 80 years, long before the HOA bought surrounding parcels. She rolled her eyes and said, "Show us proof. Until then, you're trespassing." But I didn't need proof. They did. "You've got this all wrong. Or maybe you've never looked at a real map." Back in town the next morning, I met my lawyer. He pulled up satellite images and the original county deed. My family owned not only the lake, but 60 feet beyond it, cutting straight into what the HOA thought was theirs. That meant their hiking trail, docks, and community lake signs were all on my land. I smiled. It was time for the real trespassers to learn the truth. There must be a mistake. That land belongs to the HOA. I returned that evening not to camp, but to post new signs. "Private property trespassers will be prosecuted." Within hours, I got a visit. The HOA board demanded a meeting. Their lawyer was sweating. This could be a clerical error. I handed them copies of the title, maps, surveys, and drone footage. Silence fell. "So," I asked, "should I call the cops on you now or later?" "Absolutely. Here is the expanded 1,000-word version of Part 5 of your story titled, Part 5. They tried to intimidate me. It backfired. You're making a mistake messing with the HOA." That's what she told me. Sharon Whitmore, HOA president, with the smug attitude of someone who'd never been challenged. She was standing by the edge of my lake, flanked by 2 board members, arms crossed like she was preparing to seize land in the name of some suburban empire. I didn't flinch. I just stared at the 3 of them from my porch swing with a cold mug of coffee and a hotter fire burning inside. "You've got 2 options," I said calmly. "Stop trespassing or pay for the privilege. Your choice." That's when the threats started flying, not direct ones, of course. That's not how HOAs operate. They deal in paperwork, confusion, and bureaucracy, silent warfare dressed in legal letters and community standards. 3 days later, I received a letter. Subject: Notice of violation fine. $5 OO violation. Unauthorized structure, campsite, fencing, and non-compliance with OA regulations. I nearly laughed. They were trying to fine me for camping on my own land, for fencing off the lake that I owned, for putting up a sign they didn't like. They really thought they had authority here. What they didn't know was, I wasn't just a guy with land, I was a guy who knew how to fight back. I took their complaint, the fine, and the HOA bylaws they included, then handed it all to my lawyer, Rick. Rick's the kind of man who wears cowboy boots in court and eats HOAs for breakfast. He chuckled after skimming the documents. "Son, these people are out of their depth. Let's go teach them how deep that lake really is." We filed a counter motion immediately, not just to challenge the fine, but to expose the HOA's overreach and attempt to assert control over private, non-HOA land. I included everything: deeds from 1943, new GPS-verified surveys, and photographs of the HOA's signs and structures sitting squarely on my side of the property line. The hearing was set within 2 weeks. The county clerk, who'd likely seen HOA nonsense plenty of times, fast-tracked it. In court, the courtroom wasn't packed, but the tension was thick. Sharon sat at her table with their lawyer, who looked like he hadn't read the documents closely enough. I could see their board whispering behind her, growing more unsure with every passing minute. When our case was called, Rick stood tall and began, "Your Honor, my client is being harassed by an HOA with no legal authority over his land. He's being fined for enjoying his own lake, land that has been in his family for generations, while the HOA continues to trespass, build structures, and advertise public access on private land." He dropped the map on the table. "This is..." A current G ice rendering of the area. The red zone is my client's land. The blue, he pointed, is HOA property. You'll notice half their amenities fall inside the red. Gasps. Even the judge's brow raised. The HOA lawyer stumbled through a weak rebuttal, claiming their records showed the lake as shared community space. Rick replied with a copy of the original county deed. The judge leaned forward, staring at the paperwork, then at me. Double quotes, Mr. Daniels. You've lived here how long? Born and raised, Your Honor. My grandfather dug that lake by hand in 1943. I've maintained it for decades. Never once paid an HOA fee. Never once signed their covenant. He nodded slowly, then turned to the HOA. This man doesn't live in your jurisdiction. He doesn't fall under your covenant, your restrictions, or your fines. Frankly, you're lucky he hasn't charged you rent for the last 10 years. Boom. Mic drop. Sharon's face drained of color. One of the board members, a guy who hadn't said a word all morning, stood up, whispered something, and left the courtroom. He didn't come back. Case dismissed. Fine voided. And the HOA was now under investigation for misuse of authority. The fallout. 2 days later, I received an anonymous email from one of the board members who'd been in court. Subject line, apologies, and a proposal. It read, we'd like to discuss a peaceful resolution. Perhaps a settlement or long-term access agreement. Can we talk? Translation, they knew they were cornered, but I wasn't in a forgiving mood. Not after they tried to humiliate me. Call the cops on me, fine me, erase my family's legacy. Asterisk, asterisk, I didn't want money. I wanted a statement. A shift in power. I wanted them to feel what it's like to be pushed around and shut out of what they thought was theirs. Asterisk. So I replied, asterisk, happy to discuss a settlement. Just know that access will come at a cost, and this time, I'm the one writing the rules. The tables turn. Asterisk. That week, I hired a crew to install a high-quality, 8-foot white ranch fence around the lake perimeter, complete with a gate, keypad, motion sensors, and security cameras. I added bold signs every 50 feet, asterisk, private property, nitrogen monoxide, trespassing, lake access permit, required, asterisk. The HOA panicked. Their brochure advertised lakefront community living. Their homes sold at a premium because of the access. Now, access was gone. Realtors started calling. Some homeowners were furious. The very same people who'd stared me down and accused me of squatting now demanded answers from the board. Asterisk. One woman screamed at Sharon in a meeting. You mean we've been walking on his land this whole time? You let our kids swim in his lake without permission? Asterisk. Lawsuits were threatened. Home values dropped. Open houses were canceled. The best part? Asterisk. I never charged a single family a dime. I only cut the HOA off. Any resident who approached me respectfully, I gave a passcode. They could enjoy the lake because I believed in community. But Sharon and her board? They were blacklisted. Asterisk. Every time they came near the gate, the camera lit up, and a recording played. Asterisk. This land is privately owned. Access denied. You are trespassing. Step back. Asterisk. That recording? Yeah. I voiced it myself. So when Sharon told me, you're making a mistake messing with the HOA, she had no idea how wrong she was, because they weren't the ones who were in control. I was. And now the whole neighborhood knew it. Asterisk. You like the lake so much, how about paying to use it now? Asterisk. I built a gated fence, clean, white, and locked. I installed cameras, motion sensors, and a keypad entrance. Then I sent the HOA a formal letter. They could rent access to the lake $20,000 per year, or vacate entirely. They went into meltdown. Their brochure called it a lakefront community. Not anymore. Real estate listings began to crash. Turns out, when you steal land, karma comes with a bulldozer. Asterisk. They tried to erase my family's legacy. Now they're begging for a piece of it. The lake is quiet again, just the way it used to be. No HOA board members marching around with clipboards. No police cruisers. No children unknowingly trespassing. Just the soft lap of water against the shore, a cool evening breeze, and the crackling of firewood as I sit in the same spot my grandfather once favored. Back when this place was still wild and free. Asterisk. It's funny. After all the arguments, legal battles, threats, and meetings, this place, my place, has finally returned to what it was always meant to be, a sanctuary. And now, without the buzz of HOA streetlights polluting the sky, I can actually see the stars again. They look brighter, like they remember me, like they never stopped watching. I've put up only one new addition, an old wooden plaque, handcrafted by a local carpenter and carved with care. It reads, greater than Baker Lake established. 1943, my grandfather's name. His legacy. His dream, he dug this lake himself. Dug it with bare hands and calloused palms, with a borrowed tractor and endless resolve, during a time when this land was just brush and dirt and endless sky. He wanted a place where his family could fish, camp, and build a future. He wanted freedom that couldn't be taken by someone else's vote or committee. He never imagined a world where a homeowners association would try to tell his grandson what he could or couldn't do on land he bled for. They tried to erase all that. They tried to fence me out, fine me, call me a squatter, paint me as the problem in a place my bloodline created. All because they never bothered to ask where their borders ended or who they were messing with. But now, things are different. The fancy HOA signs that once hung near the trails and lake access points, those are gone. The ones that said, community property, for HOA residents only, as if the lake belonged to them, have been pulled down, discarded, forgotten like bad promises. In their place stands the truth, nailed to cedar, Baker Lake. Some of the residents still use the lake. And I let them quietly. The ones who come respectfully, who wave and say thank you, who bring their kids to fish just like I did when I was their age. They're welcome here. I don't want to punish families for the actions of a power-hungry board. But the HOA? The board? They're locked out. Every time Sharon, or what's left of her leadership, tries to schedule a meeting with me, I ignore it. When their attorney sent me a proposal to formally reintegrate Baker Lake as a shared resource, I mailed it back shredded. They can keep their bylaws and their ego. They don't understand. This was never about money. Not for me. This was about respect. About history. About a name. About the simple idea that you don't get to rewrite someone's legacy because you have a louder voice or a fancier logo. For years, they walked on this land thinking they owned it. They built their trails across my grandfather's old paths. They let their dogs swim in the lake he dug and never once asked who it belonged to. And when they finally found out, when I stood up and told them the truth, they called the police, filed fines, and acted like I was the problem. But I fought back. Not just with paperwork and lawyers, but with resolve. The kind passed down from a man who didn't need a title to know what was his. And now, the land listens again. The owls are back, nesting in the cypress trees. The fish bite earlier in the morning. I planted wildflowers along the path leading from my cabin to the water, and every week something new blooms. The wind smells like earth again. Not like HOA landscaping chemicals. Peace. That's what justice feels like out here, not revenge, not anger. Just peace. Sometimes I wonder what my grandfather would say if he saw all this now. The gate, the signs, the court transcripts. He was never one for legal drama, but he understood what it meant to fight for something you love. He used to say, if a man can't stand his ground on his own soil, then he doesn't own it, it owns him. I think he'd be proud. Not just that I kept the land, but that I kept our name. That's what they tried to erase the name. But now, it's carved in oak and standing strong for every passerby to see. I lean back in my chair and watch the sun set across Baker Lake. The surface glows like gold. The shadows of pines stretch out across the bank, and the first stars blink to life. There's no HOA rule for that. No fine. No permission slip needed. Just land legacy and the quiet victory of truth. And as long as I'm here, that legacy stays protected, not just from outsiders, but from those who once thought their rules could override history. They were wrong, and now they know it.